Allegra.
L'unica cosa, Sara, non so se mi senti, spero di riuscire a essere collegata.
Allora, entra come panelist.
Okay, okay. Hi, Eva.
Hi, Sarah. Sorry, I was on the Google Meet link. And I
Oops.
was wondering where everybody was. But
Okay, I changed your name, Eva. Okay, let me check. We are already recording. So,
yeah, it said when you joined, it said meeting is being recorded.
yeah, perfect. Iris should be joining now as well.
And are participants joining in another? This says it's the rehearsal, or
Sorry, what?
so participants are joining
No,
in,
I have
in a
to,
way.
yeah, I have to
Okay,
now
let them
start
in.
start
Okay.
the webinar. Yeah. Okay, I will start it, and then yeah, and also Iris should be joining.
Right. Sara dovrebbe avere... L'abbiamo fatto tanto di iniziarlo.
Okay, okay,
Perfect.
ready to go then. So welcome. Happy to be here again with another appointment of our webinar series. So today we have some great speakers with us. The topic is clear. We are talking about DPP. We are counting down to 2027 to the timeline for compliance. And with us today we have Eva Cruz, founder of Global Fashion Agenda at Copenhagen Fashion Week. She will give us the business point of view of behind Digital Pro Passport. Then we have also Vittorio Giordano from GS1 Italy. He will give us some details about the standards and what does mean interoperability for Digital Pro Passport. Then we have the Italian lawyer Olivia Bosas from Studio Bosas. She will clarify some legal aspects of the regulation and how these affect the brands within the European market. Then we'll have also Mauro Scaglia, which will join us in the next few minutes directly, and he will give us an update on the timeline from the European Commission on the regulation. Last but not least, we have also Iris Krami, our CEO, Renoon CEO, which will give us an overview on the execution and how to kick off the digital passport project. So happy to start. I see people are still joining the webinar, so welcome to everybody. In the meantime, I will just tell you that we'll be also recording this session and we'll be sharing with you both the slide that we are presenting, but also the recording of this webinar. So you will receive it. So yeah, I think we can start. Maybe we'll have a quick round of introduction, and then we can kick off. Eva, that's right. You can start.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. Hello, everyone. And I can see more people joining in, but I think it's a good priority for all of you to join a session like this, because the fashion industry is in a very pivotal moment at the time. For many, many years, the agenda on sustainability and transparency and traceability has sort of been coming at the industry in different pace. But of course, it's been accelerated by a lot of the EU legislation and regulation coming towards the industry. And I know that many departments of sustainability has been receiving this with sort of a mixed feelings, because it also requires so much, data collection. Many sustainability leads would rather maybe use their time being innovative and finding, exciting creative solutions for their brand, to work with new materials or find other ways of innovating the products. However, this is a requirement that, is coming at everyone. And that's why, from my perspective, this is something it's not an evil, it's a positive. It's really about how we can accelerate not only the brands that are doing the good work already, but also the ones that might be lacking behind, because this is creating a level playing field. And with all of the incredible technology solutions that we have available, and you'll meet Renoon in this session, this type of data collection and this type of accessing more insights to your supply, your whole value chain, is actually going to be a benefit for you as a business. It's something that will give you the insights that you might not have ever had. But it's also time of truth, right? Because it's about lifting the hood of the car and seeing what the engine actually looks like. And those who's done their homework will be happy to present something that can also be turned into a business for you. If you've gone the lengths of doing proper work in their supply chain, you probably be excited to have these stories to tell your customers. And at the end of the day, this is what it comes down to. What legitimizes the price of a product? What legitimizes your customers to keep buying and pursuing? It's also the story of the product. So it's really also a way for us to elevate and lift fashion products. So I think as businesses, you should look at these as an opportunity to get to know your business better, to not only take these legislative requirements as a pain point, but really something that can be an advantage for businesses who embrace it. And then there's another reason why I think this session is super important for people to listen into today, and that is in capacity as advisor to Renoon. We've had many conversations one-on-one, but also in workshops similar to this and in person with businesses across the whole of Europe. And we've actually found something quite staggering, and that is that there's a lot of the businesses that hasn't even begun the journey yet. But if we look backwards and we say products hitting the shelf spring, summer 27, and we rewind, the data collection needs to start now. And you're probably even a few months late. So really, to be on top of the curve of the legislation and requirements coming, it's really pertinent, and it's really now that this process needs to start, which is why we discuss, should we put out a webinar? Should we offer more insights? How can we help the industry embrace what they're facing, but also embrace it in a way that won't kill your teams once the legislation comes bamming at you, but really being ahead of it and turning it into an advantage. So that's why I actually think it's an exciting moment for our industry. It's been sort of distributed who's been doing the work in sustainability and traceability and transparency and who has not. And now with legislation, it's required that everybody steps up their game. And that, I think, is really critical for our industry to really advance its footprint and its understanding, and also to lift our products and storytelling. So I think it's a really exciting moment. I know it feels like, just another thing you need to add to your list of things to do, but I really think it's a way, there is opportunities in this, and there is a way of looking at this as something that will increase your knowledge about your business, increase your knowledge about what your footprint looks like, even your value chain, and maybe even find ways to effectivize and optimize, and of course, create amazing storytelling. So I would say embrace, but get to work, because time's running out if you want to be ready and meet the legislatory requirements coming at you very soon. But you get much more insights from our experts on the panel with this. But I just wanted to say, I really hope that you go into this with an open mind and seeing the benefits and opportunities that lies ahead of us as an industry to actually embrace the digital product passports.
Yeah.
So over to all of the experts that can unfold this for you all.
Thank you, Eva, for introducing the topic of today. You said that right, so it's really a critical moment, but also like it's also we can take an advantage from it, right? So I already see actually that we have a raise, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end of our expert talk. So yeah, let's keep all the questions in the chat for now, and then we'll have a space for questions. Now let's get into it, and we want to really make this session really practical. So I will leave the floor to you, Giordano, to give us an overview about the standards that may be related to digital passports.
Thank you, Sarah. Good evening to everybody. I'm Vittorio from GS1 Italy, and today I will present you how GS1 standards act in the digital product passport and traceability landscape. So in the next slide, I give you a quick introduction about GS1, which is a neutral and non-profit organization with the aim of developing standards that simplify and make more efficient the exchange of data between companies in different supply chains in different industries. Our most famous standard is the barcode, which I'm pretty sure everybody already seen at least once in their life. We are created by businesses for businesses. It means that in our boards are the companies that use the standards and drive the innovation and the updates of the standards according to their needs. We are a global organization, and we are in under 20 countries, and worldwide there are more than 2 million companies that use our standards and services. Looking at Italy, there are more than 42,000 companies as user of our systems. So next slide. What you can do basically with GS1 standard is to build a global business language, build on the trusted identifiers, global standards, and frameworks. You can identify, so create a global digital identity for products, location, logistic units, every element of the supply chain, then capture and record those data in data carriers, making this information machine readable. So here comes the barcode, also the QR codes and the RFID tags. And then there are also standards to have an efficient and accurate exchange of data, starting from master data to traceability events. Next slide. So why we are here? As Eva said, we are in a context where European national regulations increasingly require the sharing of information between actors in the supply chain, up to consumers and authorities. Also considering the complex context where the supply chain of the fashion industry operates, companies nowadays must be ready to collect, store, and exchange data. Huge quantities of data, very different kind of data, from sustainability to product data, and also being able to interact and exchange those data globally. So it's clear why there is the need of a common business language. Next slide. So at this crossroad of consumer engagement, regulatory compliance, AI disruptions, and the needs of data of the supply chain, global standards become more vital than ever, providing identifiers, standards, and trusted frameworks to help the supply chain deliver the value that they need to their customers or the stakeholders involved, including regulators. So all those data that are different kind of data and different source, in order to be efficiently managed, need to rely on a standardized and interoperable global business language, which will improve, of course, data quality. So the data quality exchange on the supply chain, support the sharing and empower of traceability data, resulting in what? Trust with consumers and all the stakeholders, as also regulators that can rely on structured data. Collaboration will improve collaboration with efficient exchange of data and, of course, relying on interoperability. Data must be interoperable. We are in a global context, and interoperability of the data is a key element. So that's the role of standards, and that's the role of GS1 standards that can enable also a scalable approach to traceability and regulation compliance, thanks to interoperability and standards data. In the next slide, we can see an example with the digital product passport, where in the ESPR, there are already stated some elements, even if we're waiting for all the details in the delegated acts. But they say there is the need of unique identifiers for product and economic operators. Data shall be in interoperable and open format, and identifiers and data carrier used shall be ISO compliant. So those requirements are very in line with what we just said. So here you can see how and what standards are already available in order to answer to those requirements. We have the GTIN for identification of product, GLN for locations, and the QR code standard GS1 that embeds identifiers inside as possible solution for data carriers. All those standards, ISO compliant, are available for companies and build a trusted business language. I will conclude with our mission in the last slide, which is powering trust in data for everyone, everywhere. That's our mission, and especially in this context where compliance and sustainability is no more confined to back-end documentation, but it lives on the package. It lives in the data that the supply chain will be able to collect and share. So GS1 standards are here in order to support companies to embrace this challenge and make data flow inside the supply chains in the most efficient way as possible. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Vittorio, for giving us an overview on how GS1 standards can be used within the world of digital passports. And really, on one side, standards will be mandatory, as you said, for data interoperability. And the standards that you already have in place and already recognized internationally, I think would be like a key starting point for the data infrastructure behind digital passport. I have a question for you, actually, but I will leave it to the end.
Sure.
Now, let's get into more legal clarity information. So I will leave the floor to you, Olivia. You can first of all introduce yourself, and then I would like to ask you what brands need to know today. So what are the key things that brands need to know today?
Hi everyone, thanks to Renoon for the invitation and for creating a space for a discussion on a topic that even before being technical is, in my opinion, profoundly ethical. Because the digital product passport represents a new form of demonstrable responsibility towards the supply chain and towards consumers, who today demand credible, verifiable, and useful information for making decisions. Transparency, traceability, and environmental data have become parameters of legality and trust. So the DPP, in my opinion, was born here, not as a marketing tool, but as a guarantee that what we declare about products correspond to what actually happened along the supply chain. And from a legal perspective, this plays a significant cultural shift because a competitive brand in 2027-26 must start building solid and responsible internal process now. In my experience, the first operational step is not technological, but cultural, because targeted training is needed for the company function involve product development, sustainability, supply chain, quality, marketing, legal, and IT. A shared language is needed regarding what verifiable data means and how product data translates into complaints obligation. Only with this minimum level of internal owners along with legal guidance can a company proceed to the most complex tasks, assessing its product and information flow. A natural DPP project begins with a careful review verification of the accuracy of the information that will then be published in the digital passport. Today, this means analyzing the correct information about labeling and presence of chemical substances, content and percentage of recycled material, traceability of raw material and essential production fees, main production sites, environmental certification, carbon footprint calculation, and end of life and recyclability information for both the product and its packaging. This is not selective data. It's the direct result of regulatory obligation already enforced or about to be implemented in the next future. One of the least understood aspects of the DPP is precisely this, the data set required by the digital passport is not created from scratch, but represents the integration of existing regulatory requirements. To mean a few IPR, extended producer responsibility, already imposes disclosure requirement and recyclability, material traceability, and correct environmental labeling. In fact, much of the data required by IPR will flow into the DPP. The second example is the PPWAR packaging and packaging waste regulation that's introduced stringent requirement on packaging recyclability, recycled content targets, and consumer communication. These elements will also become part of the DPP dataset, especially in categories that require information and packaging components. So for a company, preparing for the DPP means ensuring that all the information already required by IPR, PPWR, SPR, EOTR, EODR, and other sector-specific regulation is accurate, up-to-date, verifiable, because this is what will be included in the digital passport. Since the DPP public exposes a dataset derived from regulatory obligation, the next step for me is very concrete legal activity. One, map the product life cycle, identify who generates with data. Map the supply chain, especially critical supply and relevant stages after legal due diligence, and review existing contracts, introducing transparency and data sharing obligation, accountability for declared data, minimum due diligence standard, shared codes of conduct, correct regulatory gaps, such as those regarding environmental claims, chemical traceability, recycled content, or certification. The DPP will make any inconsistencies between what the company declares and what it's documented clear to consumer or authorities or business partner. From a legal and operational perspective, the work to be done today is more clear. Train the internal function to will manage data and responsibility. Map products and supply chain, identifying data, responsibility, and gaps. Review contract, including transparency and data governance obligation. And align internal data set with IPR, PPWR, SPR, and regulation with that will be incorporated into the DPP. Build processes now that must be fully operational by 2027, 26. all in this way will DPP become a legal accountability tool, and not an imposed requirement or even worse, a marketing tool. It's become an opportunity to connect sustainability, innovation, responsibility along the entire supply chain. So I conclude by saying that the supply chain and DPP in this case of the future will collapse not because of technology, but because of the lack of responsibility. Is very, very important now for the legal perspective. And so I conclude, thanks for this moment, for my... Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia, for sharing some key things from your side. I think something really interesting to highlight is the fact that digital passport is not just related to ESPR, but it's also like a digital tool that can carry on compliance information for other regulation as well. As you said, mentioned.
Yeah, the regulation. Yeah.
Exactly. It's also mentioned already in other regulation. So it's really a tool that starts with the SPR, but also brings over other compliance requirements on a digital label.
Right.
Yeah. Then I also have a question for you that I will leave at the end. Now going into more the timeline. Unfortunately, Mauro Scaglia from Eurotex was not able to join us today because he's traveling. But I can give you an overview on the timeline. So you should.
Afternoon.
Sara,
Oh,
sì.
okay. Hi, Mauro. Welcome.
Yes. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. No, indeed, I have confirmed my availability, and I'm glad to be here this afternoon with you. Just maybe a word of introduction. Mauro Scaglia, I'm director of the Sustainable Business Department in Eurotex. We are the official European Textile and Apparel Industry Confederation based in Brussels, where I am right now. And we speak on behalf of the textile value chain with the EU policymakers in the design and implementation of legislation. With this capacity, I'm glad to share with you some insights on the indicative timeline and also some information about the development of the digital product passport, which you can see here in the slides. I thanks once again Renoon for the opportunity. We do not have previous engagement or collaboration with Renoon, but we are nonetheless glad to join any opportunity we have to discuss with IT solution providers or other stakeholders to share a few highlights on the digital product passport development and, when appropriate, also some consideration from the textile industry that we represent. Dipping in the contents, what you see in the slides are, again, indicative key steps. Let me go straight to the major one, which is this larger horizontal bar that you see here, which connect 2025 with 2029. This is about the development of the so-called Eco-Design Delegated Act for textiles, which in reality addresses only garments, so a part of the textile production output, and which gives an indication of what is going to happen until the full entry into force of the requirements of this legislation. Eco-design foresees that the garments which will be sold in the EU territory by 2029 at the latest will have to comply with information performance requirements. When it comes to information requirements, we refer notably to the digital product passport because it will be the vehicle to transfer this information to the consumers, but also market surveillance authority. As you can see on the left part of the slides, between 2026 and 2027, key decisions and key steps will actually take place. We do expect that by the first quarter of next month, SEN, the European Standard Committee for Standardization, will roll out the standards. The 8 standards have been mandated by the Commission to create the interoperability and the whole IT framework through which any kind of digital product passport system will operate, whether it's for textile, garments, or batteries or others. Within the next year, the Joint Research Center from the European Commission will complete the so-called preliminary study on textiles, which will present policy option for performance and information requirements. That means it will suggest which information requirements will be set in the digital product passport, which means it will suggest which data points will have to be processed, will have to be used via the DPP itself. We also know that in July next year, the DPP registry will be operational, at least for the part which concerns the battery digital product passport requirements. And we expect also in the second half of next year, the Commission to launch the implementing acts, which will regulate the provision, the requirements necessary for IT solution provider for companies to issue digital product passport. Without that, it would not be possible for any company to officially release a digital product passport. Now, most importantly, within 2026 and 2027, the key decision will be made. The European Commission will run an impact assessment, will run public consultation, and in consultation with the stakeholder, in particular the member states of the European Union, via the so-called Eco-Design Forum, will also proceed to the final description of the delegated act itself. This legislation will be adopted between 2027 and 2028. The timeline is indicative. We say orientatively Q2, second quarter, but it could also be later. That's why you see this TBC to be confirmed right in the middle of this note. That suggests that once the adoption will be completed, there will be at least 18 months for the business to comply with these requirements. That means not before half of 2028 and until maybe even early 2029, the business will have to effectively integrate performance and information requirements in the garments sold in the EU. That means business will have to produce a digital product passport. It's important to stress that by the time the requirements will be known and decided, until the time business will have to comply, there will still be 18 months at least. This time frame might even be extended. That is to say that at this point in time, we do not know which information will be necessary for the business, for retailers and brands to include in the DPP. This will only be known at some point of next year. We will also know where there will be only mandatory information which will be disclosed, or also there will be room for optional information, because this is also a point that at this point in time is not yet known. How each brand's retailer and company will organize itself to retrieve this data from the value chain, how they will elaborate on further optional information, how would they potentially use also the data retrieve system that they will choose to also collect data which might be useful to comply with other legislation, we do not yet know. And this will be up to each and every brand individual capacity and individual interest to decide. Again, under the assumption that there will be the possibility to collect optional information. So it is very important to keep a distant difference between what is the DPP itself, what information will be in the DPP, and which exercise companies will do to trace this data back in the value chain and until which points, whether it's chemicals, whether it's materials characteristics, or even potential other aspects not related to the product itself, but to the production processes. To conclude, I would like also to mention two other pieces of legislation, the EPA, European Product Act, which has been introduced actually quite recently. It was announced by the European Commission last month. There is a public consultation ongoing. Public consultation means an exercise where all the stakeholders, everybody, even all of you listening to this webinar right now, may actually contribute and share comments and consideration on the proposals or on the requests put forward by the European Commission. This act is meant to revise existing legislation, so-called NLF, a new legislative framework, which has an impact in governments when it comes to personal protective equipment, and which might also have and which will also, will be looking at aspect of the market surveillance regulation revision. That means with this legislation, which is now being consulted, for which there is now a consultation, and it should be proposed sometime next year, there will be a possibility to reintroduce some harmonized requirements when it comes to non-product specific digital product passport. We do not yet know which one this could be, but it will be important to keep an eye on this consultation. Last piece of legislation that I wanted to mention is the Waste Framework Directive, which in about 20 months up to 30 months maximum will introduce an EPR scheme to support the collection and treatment of discarded textile waste. This will include a fee that brands will be paying on products that will be placed in the market, and it might potentially have some connection with the information shared via the digital product passport. Once again, this is not known at the moment, but it is a possibility that it will take place in the future. What is, however, relevant to stress is that the EPR schemes will be introduced by latest 2028, whereas the digital product passport will be introduced quite later than that. And I think it's relevant also to mention. I would like to conclude now. I hope this quick review was quite informative. If there is any immediate question or reaction from the floor, I'm very happy to take it right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario, for giving us a so detailed overview about the timeline and next step, both for related to the XPR, but also to other regulations that are relevant for digital passport and for our industry, for the apparel industry. So, yeah, I encourage our attendees to ask any question to Mauro if they have anything they would like to highlight. I see there's a raised hand from Marian. So feel free to write any question in the chat. In the meantime, let's go to Iris. Let's go on the perspective on our perspective as a service provider and as a company supporting the brands in our journey.
Thank you, Sara, and thank you also to all the speakers today for sharing your very valuable point of view. So we've talked about indeed the regulation, the standards, and the strategy. So now, indeed, from our perspective, we want to talk about what it actually means for products. So some of the main questions that we usually receive from companies these days are, how do you avoid also doing the extra work? So how do you align with the timeline that also Mauro just explained? But what does also this extra work can bring value to the business, as Mauro also really well put. Because also what we many often we say products don't just end at checkout, right? So the moment a product leaves your warehouse, it doesn't disappear from your responsibility or from your risk profile. So it becomes connected, so it's still linked indeed to your brand and to your systems. It's traceable, so at least it should be, right? So if we want to survive the incoming legislation. And it's interactive. So it's a touch point with the end customer, with the customs, with the recyclers, with anyone who actually handles it across the life cycle of the product. And this is actually where digital product passports become very concrete. As we've seen, DPP is becoming mandatory and is also operationally inevitable. So if you think about how you ship, you clear customs, you launch in new markets, and protect your brand from global risk, there's simply no other scalable way to keep doing that with PDFs, spreadsheets, and manual declarations. So basically, without DPP. So DPP is not just another compliance line item. That is always the challenge that we put out there, to think about it really as a digital identity that lets every product move through the system without having to constantly re-explain what it is, what it contains, and whether this is actually compliant as a product. Indeed, Sarah, moving on to the next slide and into the actual business value behind every passport, the way that we're seeing companies adopt it and really bring it into their business plans and business, like shaping business pains they have into everyday, into actual opportunities. So from one side, we often speak about indeed the complex compliance and customs in slow launches. So every time you enter a new market or a new channel, you're asked indeed, as I was saying, for almost the same data in slightly different formats. So that means that you have delays back and forth with customs and a growing risk of penalties if something is missing or it's inconsistent. So operation is also ties to inventory, overstock, stock management, and stock transfers. So thanks indeed to digital product passports, this aspect can be automated for faster clearance and reduced risks. Second, if you look at the after sales, most brands lose connection with customers, and this is a reality. So you don't really want to, like, you actually really don't know who owns the product after the first sale. You can't actually easily speak to those customers in order to extend life cycle, repair, resell, or take back. So in this, thanks to DPP, you can actually turn all the registrations and warranty to actual customer insights. And third, finally, currently in the systems, products are still treated as one-time sales, right? So if you invest, which actually a lot of companies do, invest heavily in marketing and marketing products, then the value actually stops at the first transaction. So DVP actually opens potential in resale, in care, in warranty, in loyalty, where the customer stays locked into the products, and it creates a culture of product, but also opportunity for revenue growth and new revenue channels for the company. Now, indeed, these are opportunities, and as we often say, one passport can open many doors. What we see with our clients is that indeed there's an unlock of value in this four directions, right? On one side, it's an elevated experience. So it's undeniable that digital product passports being available in every product, as Mauro was mentioning, from 2028 onwards. Basically, a data carrier and a connection to the product will become inevitable, and an actual channel where indeed any customer can scan and open up and see information about that product. So in this realm, seeing trust, seeing provenance that creates trust is not, it can become not as just a marketing domain, but it can be through real data, an actual communication, and a new channel. So this is the point where transparency can be seen not just to satisfy regulation, but also to build royalty, reduce skepticism around sustainability claims. Secondly, the second door, it's the efficiency. So moving from emailing documents to automated operations and compliance. So the same structured passport data can feed customs, marketplaces, recyclers, and also your internal teams, instead of every time recreating that product information. So that is what I also meant at the beginning by saying operationally inevitable. So if you run a global business or a fast-growing business and a business that actually wants to be operationally stable and at the same time has increasing legal pressures, you basically either centralize data in a DPP or you basically are collapsing under manual processes. And we've seen it, and we see it also through Maro's presentation into also the additional legislation that's actually coming around DPP, and it's adjacent to DPP. So where DPP actually becomes indeed a new door. So the final two ones are about trust and about new revenues that we spoke about as well. So when also leadership and your company asks, why are we investing in DPP? The real answer is because it's the cheapest way to manage global risk and the fastest way to actually unlock future revenues. I want to conclude, Sarah, also indeed by mentioning our role at Renoon, that is to make this shift realistic and executable for fashion brands, apparel brands, and not just theoretical. So we're happy to be working with international standards and organizations like the United Nations and have been the go-to solution for over 30 companies from both innovators and also established players. By working also with other industry ecosystem players like Copenhagen Fashion Week, we actually see in real time how both on one side regulation and creativity and consumer expectation are converging together. So yeah, all of this experience for us at least goes into one simple thing, helping basically turn DPP from a scary compliance project into a strategic asset. So yeah, if indeed you're listening to this and thinking we need to start, we don't know how to align legal operations, we don't know how operations are going to actually work, sustainability and IT, yeah, that's exactly where we come in this case. So yeah, really use this countdown to 2027, not just to be compliant, but to build indeed an infrastructure that actually makes the business stronger.
Thank you, Iris. Now we have the time for Q&A. I see that there's already a question in the Q&A chat. I encourage you to leave other question. In the meantime, since Iris mentioned the structure and how to get started with the DPP project, here's an interesting content that we made to support companies structure the digital passport project and better understanding which are the stakeholders and teams to involve in the project, also in terms for the roadmap that the brand have to implement internally. So you can directly access to the white paper that we made this year for giving an overview on how the project could work within the company. So I see a question that I would like to raise to Olivia. So someone is asking, what's the risk for brands then that don't comply to the regulation? So what if someone doesn't put DPP on a project?
But there are penalty that impact revenue and reputation, obviously depending on which regulation was violated and how serious the violation was. No? We already seen that the risk for a major brand that fail to comply with due diligence rules regarding human and environmental rights, but depending obviously which violation was in respect and singular regulation, no? Respect SPR, PPER, SPR, EUTR, but the impact will be on revenue and reputation.
Yeah, and of course the product cannot be placed on the market, right? Okay. Thank you. I don't see other question, but I had one for you, Vittorio, from before actually. And what's the process for like a potential brand that doesn't have in place any standard at the moment and would like to start simplifying the work internally for DPP compliance, but maybe just for like better organizing also the processes within the company.
Yeah, you can refer to the GS1 local organization that is nearest to you. There, as I said, we are in all the countries in the world, so you can reach out to GS1 and ask for the support you need. It depends on which standards you need. So you need the standards for identifying products or locations. There you can find all the support you need. Also here in Just in Italy as well, with all the guidelines and all the information. And also we provide a lot of technical support and guidelines in order to adapt your business and adopt the standards in case you need. So feel free to reach out to every GS1 and you will find support on that.
Perfect, thank you. And of course, we are also partner as Renoon with GS1 Italy, so we support the use of your standards for the DPP that are built with the Renoon as a service provider. Okay, perfect. I don't see any other question. I don't know if someone among us, the speakers, have question for the others. Otherwise, I will thank you, Vittorio, thank you, Olivia, thank you, Iris, and thank you, Mauro and Eva, for sharing your knowledge with our audience today. We'll be sending you the recording of this webinar, so you can access it also later. And yeah, see you at the next appointment.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.